We're all good. I'm going to call to order the committee of the whole meeting for September 20th. Meeting number 233. And in honor of the Leeward Tool, the Village of Pemberton acknowledges within the unceded territory of the nation. Those members of the public in attendance, please note that this meeting is a live webinar and is being recorded. A recording of the meeting will be available on the village's website following the meeting. Any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, motion to approve the agenda. Councillor Noble, seconded by Councillor Craddock. Any opposed? Oh, go ahead, Councillor Antonelli.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I've been getting a fair bit of correspondence on the tree cutting for the trail near the plateau. And I know council received some correspondence that's not on the agenda. So I'm wondering if we can have a quick discussion about that as a late item.
Okay.
May I ask, I didn't receive any information. I don't know anything about it.
We've received one piece of correspondence from somebody that came in through the council submissions. That's the only correspondence the village has received in the last 2 weeks.
On the Pemberton Farm Road.
Yeah, it was received on the weekend.
I received one letter that was a forward with
Okay.
a message attached.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to maybe speak to your verbal report at all, or you don't have a verbal on it?
Yeah.
Maybe
Is that an
I
update? Do you want to do that in camera?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we'll have a look at that in camera, Councillor Ancelli. So if I forget, remind me when we do the agenda. Approval of the minute. Did I call the question? I think I did. Approval of the minutes from committee of the whole number 232 from July 12th. Moved by Zad, seconded by Councillor Noble. Any opposed? Motion carries. No delegations. We're going to go right to 5A, which is the draft electronic and hybrid meetings policy. Ms. Kennedy will be presenting. Are you going to be going up here on the screen, or should we follow on our?
Put the policy up on the screen if you want.
I like that.
You get the cursor off of Councillor Antonelli's face. That's fine. We have a palm on your face, but we can't reach it once it's.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council, Committee of the Whole. Thank you for taking the time to hear my report. And the purpose of the report is to present to the committee for review and comment a draft policy to guide the use of electronic and hybrid meeting formats. On October 21st, 2021, an amendment to Council Procedure Bylaw 788 was adopted, establishing that councillors may attend any meeting by electronic means, and then a meeting may be held by electronic means if the mayor deems it advisable or if it is necessitated by an emergency. And since that date, 12 meetings have been held exclusively by electronic means, mainly due to COVID-19 restrictions, and 19 have been conducted in a hybrid format with some participants attending electronically and some in person. Out of those meetings, all councillors were attended in person at 6 of the meetings, and between 1 and 3 attended electronically at the remaining 13 meetings. I put the draft policy attached appendix B up on the screen so you may see it. The policy sets out the essential procedural steps for electronic and hybrid meetings. For example, opening meetings, voting, moving in camera. A few elements of the policy are new. It really formalizes the process that has been in place since the village started using electronic meeting formats. The draft policy does not introduce any new restrictions on use of electronic and hybrid meetings, and it does not add any restrictions to electronic attendance by councillors. Should council or the committee wish to establish limits to the use of electronic formats or electronic attendance, these can be added to the draft policy. And this concludes my report, but I would be happy to answer any questions or to hear your comments on the draft policy.
Start with questions if there are any. Any questions on what's been presented? Councillor Zanth and Councillor Craddock.
One question on our agenda of page 8. It speaks to the policy, however, includes the requirement of members from the corporate officer at least give at least 6 days in advance if they will attend a hybrid meeting electronically. I just was curious, just maybe a little clarification there. I know for some of us that have kids, they get sick up in a day's
Yeah.
notice and can't show up.
Yeah.
Now, I know also within there, can phone in if you want. And I'm just wondering if that option would still be available. Since, I mean, I can appreciate the fact that it does take staff some time to set this up and do electronic meeting or hybrid. But in that case, could a counselor be able to call in and be present, or can we change this so that maybe it's, 1 day's notice? But I am cognizant of the fact that this takes staff a lot of time.
So that was the element we were getting at, is that we prefer 6 days notice, but certainly we can accommodate even last minute notice. I do always prepare the Zoom invitations and they're ready to send out at the last minute, even if somebody calls half an hour before the meeting and can't make it. We're just asking for a general practice if you know your schedule. And this is a policy, not a bylaw. So it's to guide electronic meeting formats, but there's some flexibility there, more than you would find in the bylaw.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, on the first page, which is number 6, says we remove the 4 in a calendar year to attend electronically.
You remove the what, sir?
We removed, it says 4 electronic meetings you could attend, and that was removed. And I'm just asking, is there any place in the bylaw where we refer to that again?
No, we did remove that. That was prior to the province changing the regulations. And so at the time we adopted the bylaw, the plan was to reevaluate after we had used the system and to determine if council would like to add restrictions like that. But at this point, we don't refer to that.
Okay, is this the report that we need to talk about it, or is it next report?
Right now, okay,
Okay, I guess the reason I'm bringing it up, I'm an old school kind of guy. I like to see people at meetings. And I guess I just don't want this system to become a situation where people don't attend in person just because they can go on Zoom. And I don't know how, we can't go to their house and see, are they sick or is the kid's home sick? We can't do that, but I have some concern about that. So I just wanted to express that and see how everybody else felt about it.
Councillor Antonelli.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up the 6 days notice, and I think it would be better to have the word encourage 6 days notice, because it's nice to give staff a heads up, but like Councillor Zant said, I think the realities of family life make that kind of difficult, and I think moving forward we want to do everything we can to encourage women to join council, and this is one of the ways, being flexible and adaptable. I was just reflecting, how many councils have we had where 2 women have been on council? Not very many, but in any case, everything we can do to encourage women, especially women with children, to make them feel like they have a place here, because there is subtle discouragement through the whole process for women with children participating. So I think this is one way we can encourage women, is by we encourage 6 days notice, but it's not essential. And then as far as the what Councillor Craddock was saying about the 4 mandatory in-person days, I get that. I think the majority of meetings really should be in person. That's optimal, but I don't think we should start putting in regulations that require staff to count in advance of a problem. So right now there is no problem when people know it's optimal to be in person, and they do it when they can. So I would just leave it as it is and not make staff count and whatnot. And if there is a problem in the future, then address it.
Thank you. I mean, did you look at any other policies from other communities that you looked at in terms of with regards to the limiting how much electronic participation council can do?
Some communities are very restrictive and allow electronic meetings only in emergencies, which is essentially what the older regulations were. Those that allow them, though, I haven't seen a lot of restrictions. I think it's something that that everybody's grappling with right now. It's really new.
I think, as council will recall, the legislation changed only a year ago. So I think that there's, and the councils that are working right now have spent the last few years, 2.5 years in the pandemic world where we're working electronically. I think what we're probably going to see over the next 4 years is some adjustments as people move forward, depending on each individual council circumstance. And if you've got a council member or a couple members who will absolutely refuse to attend in person, you may start to see some councils start to make some changes around how their meetings are formulated. We're really in a growing and development process as we all figure out how to work this sort of new reality. And that's something that can only come from experience and watching what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, I would agree with Councillor Antonelli's statements in general. And I think it's a really valuable tool, which has actually probably increased attendance when some of us may not have made it, like when I'm done a slow death of a migraine, I can make it to 2 meetings before I'm up for the 3rd one, or if somebody has a sick child. I don't think we've seen any abuse of it to date. And I think it is something we should play by ear as we move forward.
Okay, I have myself on a list. Did you want to?
No, I just wanted to follow up and just say too, I am all for a hybrid world and promoting virtual opportunities. I would say that there is a cultural component that you cannot replace with that time that we spend together in person. And I especially think of that in the formulation of a new council going forward. I also think too that it creates a space being in person for something that is really important to this community, and that those at the council table are members of our local area, and and I think that brings a lot of value as well, and something to think about in terms of at the elected official level. And I would also say that going into this, having had a situation where you had sort of a balance before, maybe something that, from a CAO perspective, I would like to encourage. However, I certainly hear what Councillor Antonelli is saying in terms of creating equitable opportunities for women to be at the table. And I think we're incredibly fortunate to have the level of participation that we do from women at this council table. So
Thanks. Yeah, I would agree with Councillor Antonelli and Councillor Noble's assessment that it's a way of facilitating more attendance, that it opens it up to more participation. We need to encourage more people to run for local government. I do agree with Councillor Caddick, or share the same concerns, Councillor Caddick, and I think CEO put it well. There's a few elements to it. For us to work together, or for a council to work together for 4 years, you need to build interpersonal skills. We need to build a relationship. It doesn't mean we need to be pals, but we need to build a relationship, and that happens much, much more constructively, in my mind, live, and especially in the early going of a term. And I think there's also a certain, we don't get a ton of attendance, but when there are items on the agenda that the attention of our public, and they could be somewhat contentious, I think it's important that they see us here and they're able to engage with us face to face as well. And I think that we build codes of conduct. We don't wait to build codes of conduct or policies when things have gone wrong. So I don't think there's been any abuse of this hybrid system at all with this council. I don't think there's anything wrong with the way we participated. Folks have had to do what they've had to do, and I think it's worked quite well. But we don't build policies and codes of conduct when things aren't going well. That's not the time to do it. You don't wait to put a code of conduct in place till after a bullying incident happens. You deal with it in advance, I think. So I do have concerns around setting ourselves up, or a future council up, for being too flexible and allowing them to not come, perhaps because it's a heated conversation. They'd rather do it from home that day. Again, nobody here would do that, but it is a possibility. So I share the sentiment about wanting to keep it flexible and open for all folks to be able to be on council. But I do think that there should be, and unfortunately, I don't have a suggestion at the end of this statement in terms of how we put a limit on it within the policy. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have a suggestion to follow it up, but I do believe that there has to be something within the policy that really encourages and supports the fact that as much as possible, we should be here face to face. Again, I'm sorry, I don't know what that looks like though. So
I fully agree with encouraging that, but I do think we should leave as much flexibility as we can to facilitate participation. I recall times as a single parent when I had sick children. I couldn't take time off work. I didn't have a sitter. Like, you're so restricted, and that could be a game changer for any single parents that get on council.
100%, and that's why I say
And
that.
us all sick too.
100%, and that's why I think it should be written in there within the policy. I don't think it should limit any of that. But I want to make sure that it doesn't allow for, so all those are great justifiable reasons, and I think the policy should make sure that it's flexible to make sure that's always can happen. But I wonder, I got you, Mika, next. I wonder, my response would be, what about for the potential abuse of that flexibility? You know? Councilor Antonelli, go ahead.
I was just thinking, why don't we just have a statement in there saying we encourage maximum participation in person and just leave it at that?
Do you have your hand up?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Wait till you finish your statement.
No, go ahead.
Because I was gonna say too, I mean, what Ms. Kennedy mentioned to us already is that this is only a policy, correct? So we do have some flexibility on it. And I agree with everybody here that I would highly encourage everybody to show up in person for everything everybody says. It builds a team better. You have to work there for 4 years, and the best way to do that is to be live in person. I would like to think somebody who's running for council is not going to abuse the hybrid system, because obviously they want to be here, they want to be in front of the public. My fear with having restrictive numbers in it is that it might turn people away. When if we have it being an option, like, oh, well, if I have a sick kid, or if I, whatever reason, you can still come to the meeting and participate. And as Ms. Kennedy mentioned, this isn't a policy, so we put something in that is just flexible, like it would be. I'd encourage to be showing up for all the meetings, but you do have a hybrid option available.
So let me ask.
No definitive answer at the end, but.
So let me ask this then, if we don't, it doesn't necessarily have to result in a number. You can't exceed this number, but perhaps there is a trigger or a trigger within the policy that says, first, two things. First of all, that this gets reviewed by current councils, because I think this needs to come back again. We're making a decision for future councils here. So I think it needs to be reviewed, because to Ms. Fraser's point, this is a year old still, it's new. And secondly, is there a way for somebody to bring forward concerns around it? So if there is a concern around abuse, Councillor Zant is regularly not showing up, there's a concern, how do we deal with it? So I think that perhaps if we don't want to put a restrictive number, I think there should be a way to have a conversation to make sure that as a group, we feel that the council feels that it's working well. So I don't know if there's thoughts on that. You have your hand up?
Yeah, I think the other thing we have to look at, you can run for council or mayor in any district or city in the province of BC. So for instance, if I want to run in Squamish, but then chose not to attend any meetings, why shouldn't there be some restrictions? That's the way I'm looking at it, like, that's just for maybe, but, we saw a few years ago, a guy from Surrey ran for mayor in Whistler, and he wasn't going to move there. He was just going to do everything on phone and stuff. So I think, and that's, it's a little concern. And like the mayor, I don't have a solution to it, but I think if there's some wording in it, it's pretty strongly set that attending by that is strictly for, personal or really a necessity.
And I, sorry.
No, go ahead. No.
What I was gonna say is I agree with you. I feel the hybrid should be kind of a last. I don't want to use the word emergency because I think that's too strong, but I think it should be expected to be in person. But if you have a last minute issue, then the hybrid is available to you. and that's how I view it as being really important, because then if you have a sitter that drops out, or all of a sudden you're sick, or you have to go out or something, then you can still attend. So, and I think the policy should reflect those concerns. Plus, what you mentioned, say there should be a safe space to have that conversation with a counselor or who has been assumed or been seen abusing it. And I think that should be, that should be an in-camera conversation, because you don't know what's going on behind the doors. That's my feelings.
Ms. Kennedy, is it a fair ask to look at some options for how we can include in the policy something that if current concerns arise, in other words, let's not put a restrictive number on it. Let's keep it flexible as it's written and presented today. But perhaps an addition of something that says, in the event that there is concern around lack of live participation, the following steps can be taken to have a conversation around that.
I like that idea.
Yep, I think that's a great, that's good. Yeah.
Is that,
I think
did you have anything to say?
I was just gonna say, and if there's a possibility, if you're in agreement to add to that, an opportunity to revisit the policy yearly.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah,
We have a statement in the policy that says it must be reviewed annually by council, and any changes must be approved by council for that reason.
Okay.
And I think that I could propose some wording, or actually someone else could propose some wording at the next meeting in October, perhaps, to see if you're happy with some steps we could set out.
so is that clear enough direction?
It is, yeah. I think it just takes a bit of brainstorming among staff to come up with wording that is robust enough, but not too.
I don't want to make it too complicated.
No, I understand, and I'm sure that Ms. Fraser does too, what you're trying to achieve. It's just a matter of figuring out the wording to set that out.
And we can expect that you'll be here to present that.
Maybe not.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, another advantage to these mixed media meetings is the fact that the public can attend remotely.
Well, that doesn't change. Has nothing to do with the policy, though. That's,
Keep that regardless.
yeah, that doesn't go away.
I like that. Keep up with the times.
You can watch it.
So if I could, in terms of, in terms of a resolution, I just said staff develop wording for a clause in the policy that addresses
Would address concerns around lack of justifiable participation around, just, it doesn't have to. Can you start at the beginning?
limited person participation.
Yeah.
We'll work on.
That's
I'll make that motion.
moved by Councilor Garrett, second by Councilor Zan. Further discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. Kennedy. Okay, draft parental leave. Ms. White, does anything? I think she's just. Oh, Ms. White.
Pack these meetings into all the dreams, I get the phone, the one, the phone's there, so all the people out the game are watching. They do like to know.
Just one.
I'm gonna say 10 jokes.
Take your time when you're all set up, the floor is yours.
Hello. How are you? You good?
Good to see.
I'm good, thank you.
Good.
Thank you so much for having me here this afternoon. The report today that I have is regarding parental and maternal leave for council members. This is following a request in June from council, just looking for some more information about what parental leave benefits might be available for council members. Presently, the Village of Pemberton doesn't have a parental leave policy in place for the councillors. So what I've done is to help prepare for this report is pulled together copies of policies currently in place in the RMOW, such as Squamish and the SLRD. You can find those kind of appendix items on page 21 of your agenda package if you wanted to browse those as we're going through this. what I found from those three policies is that there are a lot of kind of similar themes that you might want to take into account as part of potentially developing our own Village of Pemberton policy. To summarize some of those themes, what we see is that eligibility to take parental leave extends to elected officials who give birth or adopt a child, or if they are the spouse or common law partner of a person giving birth or adopting a child. Typically, the leave provision is up to 6 months with full remuneration, with the added detail in there that in the instance that an elected official is coming to the end of their term, that the leave doesn't continue on after that unless they are re-elected. There is the option in some of the policies to extend that leave of absence beyond the initial 6-month period. But that would require a council motion just in line with section 125 of the community charter. And there's variances with regards to kind of the notice required to take maternity or parental leave. Generally, it's required that at least, we're given 4 weeks in advance of taking the leave, and that's typically asked for in writing. The policies vary in terms of whether that notice is provided to the mayor, the CAO, or a corporate officer. Obviously, we could have a combination of those if we were to implement our own policy. There is a bit of a divide in terms of what happens to if a member, an elected official wants to continue with certain elements of their duties while they are on parental maternity leave. What we see here is that the District of Squamish allows that flexibility should they wish to continue doing certain elements of their role. However, the SNRD and the RMW specify that there will not be any engagement from that council or board member while they're on leave. And that there's typically, particularly with the SLRD, a decision that, we reallocate, certain committees that person's part of and kind of redistribute the workload a little bit for the duration of that leave. Generally speaking, there are very limited provisions that provide direction legally on how these kind of policies work for elected officials. I know that the SLRD staff there have done a ton of research and have been trying to kind of express that, that it is challenging to develop these policies with so little to kind of work upon. Generally, staff here don't anticipate a negative impact to either budget or staffing should we introduce a policy for our council here. And I'm happy to kind of take questions and receive feedback from the committee of the whole in terms of putting direction around this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Start with questions. Questions on what's been presented. Questions? Go ahead, Councilor.
Just one question, and when I read through both policies from the regional district RMW Squamish, it really caught me that one says no participation, it says participation.
Yeah, me too.
I looked at it and thought through it and thought, well, no, they should be able to attend. But then I started thinking if there's a controversial item that comes up, it's really not fair for the sitting council for someone to dive in for that for one meeting. Out for the next 2 or 3 as the controversy still goes on. So I was kind of torn between, okay, yes or no. And I'm not sure what the rest of the people feel, but I'm still having a bit of a struggle with the fact that they can choose to pop in and out whenever it's convenient for them. So that was any suggestions?
Gosh, I mean, for me, I think I'd probably like to get a little bit more insight from District of Squamish as to how that came to be. I would probably kind of lean more towards, I know that SLRD policy is the more recent one, and I know that staff there have done a lot more kind of research recently around kind of the ifs and buts and the details. But yeah, I think it would be interesting to know how that's working in practice for them. And I think it would be interesting to know kind of why that decision was made. And again, it's really difficult. I imagine they would have taken some legal advice pulling it together, but it is really difficult with the lack of kind of legislation and things out there to kind of define what's the right way and what's, the alternative. So it's, it's an interesting one. I agree with you.
Thank you for that.
I kind of think it'd be nice to leave that in because when you have a baby, especially for the first time watch, I've heard second ones to be a wild card too. You don't know how much your ability to participate will be. And you may find out, oh, this is an easy baby. Oh, I have help. And I'm physically up to it. And I'd like to participate in what I was elected to participate in. I kind of like the flexibility of leaving that in, that you can. I don't think anyone would take advantage of it to selectively
Okay.
attack things.
We'll go to Council Antonelli next.
But yeah, I don't think people are gonna really use it to selectively attack things and to sit out others, but that they would use it to participate as they're capable with this new human that they're responsible for and the physical recovery of having a child.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely think giving the person on maternity leave the option to participate as they can is important. So I like having that in there. The other thing that comes to mind is that attending a full day meeting, so 8 hours with a baby can be really difficult at 6 months. And so I'm wondering what options there are for extending it beyond 6 months, particularly if there is partial participation. Because, you know, as far as breastfeeding, requiring a woman to step back in full time for a full day, it can be really disruptive. So I like the idea of having a little bit more, I don't know, sort of acknowledgement of that beyond 6 months.
So, Ms. White, there is a provision.
There is, yeah, absolutely. So there would have to be kind of a council motion to I guess approve or continue that leave beyond the 6 month period. So that is, I think, in all three of the policies that I've seen so far, that there is always that option to move forward and explore that. So yeah, I don't know if that helps.
Thank you. Any other comments? It's funny because I thought about that last night too, again, going, okay, well, on one hand, any participant, we don't have alternates here. So it's not like somebody's going to sit in their stead while they're on maternity or parental leave. So any participation is good participation, and there might be things underway that a council member has been very involved in and they keep moving with. So there's some value there. I do worry that, like, we do often discuss an item over the course of 3-4 meetings. So if 3 of us hear a bunch of information today and you don't hear it today, and then you come to the next meeting and you've missed all that, I just wonder if that leaves a bit of a gap. That's more my concern. I totally agree with the flexibility, and I think 6 months, beyond 6 months, should be in there to be explored. But I do worry that if somebody pops in and out and they haven't had the benefit of the last 2 meetings, are they making a decision way less informed than everybody else at the table? That was the only thing that sort of clicked for me when I was reading it. But go ahead.
One thing to speak to that specific is that it is cool with this mixed media and it being online after that. They have an opportunity to jump in and look at those meetings and get up to
Catch up. That's a good point. Okay, well, how would we like to proceed here? We've got a draft in front of us. I think for me, the bulk of the draft is great. That was the only point that I personally felt we need to discuss. I think everything else Ms. White put forward is good in its form, personally.
Yeah, I could put the motion forward, but I would like to see staff, if they can maybe either talk to Squamish and maybe other communities, just reflect on that area. I really want to understand it.
So is your motion to bring this draft to council as it is, or is it to?
I would like the motion to be that we approve the report, subject to further discussion on the.
So when it comes to council, that it comes with a little information in terms of how
Yes,
Squamish has proceeded.
yes, please. That's what I'd like to do. Thank you.
Is that clear?
Correct.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
You need help with that motion, Ms. Fraser?
So the report, could we use the word supported over approved?
Yeah, that's right.
The whole camp.
Yeah, it has to come to.
So subject, and that, are you wanting staff to prepare an actual draft for consideration?
I think everything like what's being said is, and correct me if I'm off track, the motion is that everything here in its form is good. We would support bringing it to council for approval with us a little more consideration around and research on that.
Draft a final policy, and then provide some more feedback from Squamish, and if there's any others I'm able to get my hands on. And then I can bring back a final drafted policy and that feedback to a council session.
That way we don't have to go back to committee of the whole.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The policy be prepared for consideration.
including,
And including further review of DOS policy,
yeah, that's perfect.
Yes.
That would be great.
policy.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Councillor Scott, seconded by Councillor Noble. Further discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. White.
Very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank you.
afternoon.
Could I get a motion to adjourn committee of the whole? Brian, second by Leah, any opposed? We're adjourned. Let's take a couple minutes because we can't really open till 2 anyway. Right? Okay, so we're gonna recess till 2 o'clock.